In the sphere of OTOME games, there is no short supply of developers and creators. If I spent a video just sitting here listing off companies, we could be here for hours, but don't worry, I'm not going to subject you to that. Now I know so far on my channel I've covered two OTOMEs that were both published and developed by Otomate and Axis, two powerhouse companies in this niche gaming genre. But they're most certainly not the only ones. In 2017, a localized game was released in North America in collaboration with Red Entertainment and D3 Publisher on the Nintendo Switch and PC via Steam, and that game is Nightshade. This game would turn out to be a dark but hauntingly beautiful story with many different twists and turns, leaving the player always on their toes. I can recall multiple times where my mouth was just gaping wide open because I could not get over what had just happened in the story. Now, while I do think this game is lacking in some categories, what this game truly excels at is plot development. And that is why I am very happy to share this game with you guys today. So without further ado, let's dive into the plot of Nightshade. The story begins with a narrator explaining an event that happened during the Sengoku era. During his reign, Oda Nobunaga initiated the Tensho-Iga War and decimated most of the Iga ninjas in the process. After this heavy loss, Iga's rival clan, Koga, put aside their past rivalries and offered refuge to the few Iga members that remained. The leader of the Koga clan and the sister of Iga's former leader were married and gave birth to a daughter, Enju, who would become known as the clan's symbol of peace. 17 years later, the Sengoku period has finally come to a close, and Japan was unified. The story then picks up following Enju, who has now become a young adult and is assigned her very first mission as a shinobi with her fellow friends Gekamaru, Kiara, Enosuke, and Chojiro. However, despite the mission being successful, events unfold and she finds herself caught up in a dark political conspiracy, one that she may not ever be able to escape from. This was the perfect prologue. It perfectly set up the story for each route and had me eagerly anticipating what would happen next. And isn't that what you want in a story? You don't want to read a book, get 10 chapters in, and be like, I mean, yeah, this is boring, but I'm already a quarter way in, so I've got to keep going, right? And the game doesn't stop with the plot twists in just the prologue. No. It's one after another after another. You're giving your poor brain whiplash reading this game, but it's all worth it in the end. Now, let's move on to your potential suitors. These characters will be listed in the order that you're introduced to them, starting off with Chojiro. Chojiro is a current Koga shinobi, but his deceased father was the former Iga clan leader, and he acts as a teacher for the younger clan members. He initially comes off as a very straight-to-the-point, pull-no-punches person, but you will later come to understand that there is much more meaning behind his short-spoken sentences than first meets the eye. Next up is Gekamaru. When he was a little boy, he and his younger brother were taken under Enju's mother's wing after their parents passed away. He and Enju have a very close relationship. However, Enju tends to get annoyed at how overprotective Gekamaru can be at times, and it's clear at the beginning that he considers himself her protector. Next is Gekamaru's younger brother, Kuroyuki. Kuroyuki is the same age as Enju, and they were very close as children until he was sent on a mission that lasted for 8 years. When we are reunited with him again, Enju is overjoyed to see that he's still the same goofy, playful guy that she knew as a child. But as the story continues, she begins to wonder, is he really still the same? Or is he hiding something behind his seemingly familiar smile? Once you embark on your first mission, that is where you will run into your next potential suitor, and his name is Goemon. Right away, this man gives off a very ladies' man vibe, with his charming way of words and dashing good pecs. I mean looks. You will constantly bump into him around the city, and it begins to make you wonder, doesn't this man have a job to go to or something? Last up is the infamous shinobi Hanzo. Hanzo is currently employed as Ieyasu Tokugawa's shinobi, and there's a good reason for why he's so highly regarded. There is no one comparable to this man's skills, and because of that fact, he's feared by many other clans. He's very stoic and serious, putting his work and missions before anything else. Each route is roughly around 11 to 13 chapters, which for some may seem daunting and time-consuming, but don't worry, because I found this game to be relatively short. I would say on average, for me to finish one route, it would be roughly around 6 hours. And even then, the first 5-ish chapters are just the intro, so you can skip these after your first playthrough if you desire. I would definitely say that Collar Malice and Pio4 were longer than Nightshade, and I'm not saying that's a negative, because sometimes I do prefer a story that's just short and sweet. Which brings me on to my next point. Although I found this game to be on the shorter side, they packed so much plot into this game, it's almost outrageous. Every single route has so many twists and turns that there were times I was so overwhelmed I had to put the game down and take a breather. Even down to the last 5 minutes of this game, they could throw in something that could either leave you grinning from ear to ear or drowning in a pool of your own tears. Consider that a warning. This is why I think this game's best selling point is, hands down, the plot. Now, while I do want to highly praise this game for its plot development, there was one element of this game that I personally could not get into as much as I wanted. And sadly, that was the romance. I really enjoyed playing Goemon's route, and I think Gekamaru's was my absolute favorite in terms of both romance and plot. But for Kurayuki, Hanzo, and Chojuro, I couldn't get into theirs at all, and I'll tell you why. From the very beginning, Kurayuki was described as being the same age as Enju, and her mother raising them both together. Now you might hear this and be like, so what? They may have a close relationship, but they're not related. And yes, you're correct. However, they constantly keep mentioning how they were both breastfed at the same time. It's mentioned not once, not twice, not even 3 times, but 5 times. Like, they could be having a serious conversation and even be flirting with one another, but then one of them would just be like, hey, do you remember the time we drank from the same titty? And it would completely ruin the mood. I'm wondering if this was all due to a translation issue, but even if this was in the Japanese version, I still don't think I'd be able to overlook this. I think the reason why it made me not like the romance aspect of his route was because they really emphasized how close they were as siblings, and I personally couldn't detach myself from that initial relationship. This probably won't be an issue for other players, but I did think it was something to mention. Now, what could be wrong with Hanzo's route, Natalie? I don't know, maybe the fact that Enju is 16 and Hanzo is freaking 33? He's literally over double her age. I'm sorry, but that's a hard no from me. Throughout his entire route, there would be times where he'd be helping her train and giving her guidance, but it reminded me of a fatherly relationship, and it's just something I could not get past no matter how hard I tried. Now finally, we have Chojuro. Now when I first introduced the characters, I had mentioned that his father was the former Iga clan leader, right? And Enju's mother was the sister of the deceased clan leader. Do you see where I'm going here? That means that Chojuro and Enju are cousins. No. I'm losing my mind here. Again, this is similar to Kurayuki's route, although this is 100% confirmed that they are blood related, so that's a hard pass for me. And listen, I know you could say, well Natalie, you know historically relatives married each other all the time. This is nothing new, but hear me out here. You could have made him the child of any other clan member that had been given refuge by the Koga clan, and his story would still have been just as good. Nothing else would have had to change, and the plot could have still followed word for word. I'm not saying that this makes his route unbearable, I'm just saying there were times where it definitely made me feel uncomfortable. I am also aware of the forbidden romance trope being prevalent in manga and anime, but again, that's a no from me, chief. Now, let me take a moment to praise what I love about this game. Now, despite me not liking most of the romantic relationships in this game, I did, however, fully enjoy the platonic relationships between each of the story's characters. For instance, I loved Kuruyuki teasing and annoying Gekamaru, their brotherly affection out on full display. I loved seeing Goemon charming nearly every person in the game, and I was laughing at the constant bickering between Enosuke and Kiara. While I think the writers may have been lacking in the romantic relationships, they made up for it in the familial-esque relationships, and honestly, I'm okay with that. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this game is that it doesn't matter what order you play the routes in. No one route is interconnected to another, and it was a breath of fresh air playing this game. It's nice knowing that finishing one route out of order won't mistakenly spoil the whole experience of the game. I did, however, play Gekamaru's route last because he was my favorite from the get-go, and I love that I saved my best boy for last. So if I make any recommendation at all, I would say play the prologue, scope out who you think will be your favorite, and try to save them for last. Chances are you won't be disappointed. At this point, I feel like I don't even need to tell you guys about the voice acting because it's normally always exceptional, and this game is no different. Each character's voice actor suits them perfectly. I personally really liked Hiro Shimono's voice as Kuruyuki. I feel like that role was suited for him perfectly, but every voice actor selected did a phenomenal job. Can we just take a moment here to talk about how stunning this game's artwork is? From the settings, to the outfits, even to the ninjas' weapons, the attention to detail is immaculate. The characters are also stylized beautifully, which I wouldn't expect any less from the artist Teda, who also worked on the well-known OTOME Norn 9. This game's art gives off a very dark atmosphere, which complements the overall tone of this game, which I found to be quite serious. Now, it wasn't all doom and gloom in this game. There were times where I was laughing at the interactions between each of the characters. There was definitely some fun banter moments, but there were moments where I found this game to be just downright hilarious, even when I shouldn't have. For instance, near the end of Hanzo's route, Enju is having a dilemma, debating whether or not she should confess her feelings to him. You two are out walking through a field, and then out of nowhere, this happens.
では、これは教わったか。
Yes, this man just starts tweeting on some blades of grass. Enju is having an internal dilemma, and this old man is just out here playing nature's trumpet in the middle of nowhere. I'm not even joking when I tell you guys I had to pause the game and take a breather for like 5 minutes because I was just howling with laughter. This is what I mean when I say I could not take Hanzo seriously as a romantic interest. Like, it reminds me of my dad being like, "Hey kids, you want to see something cool?" Just starts like ripping up the dirt. And on that note, let's move on to my final thoughts. Do I think this game is for everyone? I'm going to have to say no on this one. As I've mentioned before, this title is on the darker side, and it can get pretty grim. There are mentions of suicide, and without spoiling anything, there is a lot of death in this game. So if there are some readers that are sensitive to the material, I would go ahead and skip this game. So, who would I recommend this game for? If you're into ninjas and historical Japan, I would definitely say that this would be a great choice. It was quite an adventurous story with a lot of political influence as well, so if that sounds intriguing to any of you, then I would give this game a go. Now, who were my favorite characters? As you may have guessed from earlier, it was Goemon and Gekamaru. Goemon and Enju have a very sweet relationship that was just really enjoyable to watch grow. Gekamaru's route was just out of control in all the right ways. There were so many twists and turns, and it will have you shocked until the very end. And when I mean the very end, I mean it. His route was hands down the best one by far in my opinion, and I really think most players will enjoy his story. Now, it is kind of tricky for me to rate this game, so I feel like I have to break it down into 2 rating categories. One for the plot, and one for the romance. For the romance, sadly, I'm gonna give this game a 6 out of 10. There was just something about it that didn't cut it for me. I'm not saying this game is terrible because of that fact, because it certainly isn't. What it lacks for in romance, it makes up for in story, which is why, for the plot, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So, overall, I would say I'm going to give this game 7 out of 10. There's no way that this is the worst otome I've ever played, but it's not the best one that I've played either. So, while my time playing this title has had its ups and downs, it definitely had more positives than negatives. Whether you're in the market for a historical adventure or an action-packed shinobi tale, please consider this title as your next visual novel. And if you do choose this as your next title, steel yourself and get ready to delve into the hauntingly beautiful world of Nightshade. Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I hope you guys found this video informative if you were considering picking up Nightshade. If you guys would like me to review any specific otome, please leave it in the comments below. I'm definitely searching for my next otome to play, so if anyone has any suggestions, please leave it in the comments below. And if you have played Nightshade, I would like to ask you guys, who is your favorite character? Because online I saw that quite a few people actually really liked Hanzo, so please tell me why. Anyway, I hope you guys are all having a wonderful week, you are staying safe, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye!